Hey guys, I'm Jennifer, and I'm going to represent myself and Jackie from week 7. We were teaching you cultural and ethnic diversity, and so I was just going to provide some feedback from Jackie and myself. And I'm sorry I'm talking low, but I've got classrooms on both sides of me. So anyway, so in response to your tasks associated with cultural diversity, assignments, the first forum assignment, which was to be a culturally responsive teacher, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at my paper too, so I'm trying to follow along. So I make sure I put our thoughts down. So in response to the first forum, which said you were supposed to read the articles and respond to the questions on what happens, what happens if your mindset is go into the classroom and just teach the subject, or what if your plan for teaching does not include or acknowledging or worrying about the influence of race and diversity of our students. And to answer the question, would students be frustrated if this were the case, and if so, why? Many of you had good responses and some remarks that we wanted to point out, like Gabriella said. I think that if our mindset is to just teach this subject, we exclude all other factors that makes our students unique and diverse. This makes me feel like we see all the students the same, and we see them as blank slates, when in reality our students are incredibly diverse individuals with their own previous knowledge. So we like this statement. It's certainly important that we realize that our students, even if they are of similar academic levels in our classroom, they may not be from the same background, and that influences their perception of school and how they learn. Another post was from Clifford. He said, so much of what is taught in school is based on Eurocentric or Anglo perspective, especially in ELA and social studies. Students that are not a part of that heritage will feel left out, or that their cultural traditions aren't as significant. So like Clifford mentioned, we think it's important for us to remember that we do need to go above and beyond when we can incorporate other backgrounds. Even if we aren't in a culturally diverse area, we're still informing the future generation, and we should encourage them to be culturally aware of all backgrounds, and that all backgrounds are significant. I echo that to say that we do our students a disservice when we do not prepare them. Their knowledge base and their basic understanding of other cultures and habits that are different from their own. We have a unique opportunity in middle school at this age and stage to really give our students some opportunities to put action to their learning, and we need them to understand and recognize differences and acknowledge that, and just speak out about ways that happens, what they see. Not everybody sees the same thing. It kind of goes along with the main statement about learning through context, and that if they are only memorizing the information, then they will be unable to use it in their lives. I definitely agree with your statement about contextualized learning and making the context agree with your, make it relevant to your students' everyday reality. In order to do this, we must first know our students, and we cannot know them without taking into account their cultural and ethnic differences. Because not all of our students are going to share the same passion and different, they're not all going to share the same passion, enthusiasm, and zeal that we do, or even that other students in our class might feel about a certain subject. Some of our students don't get outside of their county much. Some of our students will never have been outside of our state. And then we want to mention them about traveling to a different country and taking part in different activities. They may not know what it's like to go skiing, water skiing or snow skiing, or going to the beach, getting on an airplane. Some of them, their car might have broken down on the way to school. Terrence said, as our neighborhoods change and different ethnic groups come into our schools, it is important to know their beliefs about education and how that can affect your classroom. Ethnic groups can also have different demands outside of the school day. These responsibilities may take precedence over schoolwork. This must be kept in mind when assigning these students extra work outside of the school day. Some families may even limit the amount of time the student spends on the computer, or they may not even allow a computer in the home. We need to be aware of our students' capability. So, like, if they do perform well in the classroom and do well with certain tasks inside the classroom, but then we see that it's not being done outside the classroom, then we need to consider why, and maybe to say to that student, is there a reason why, your work ethic is different outside the classroom than it is inside the classroom, and kind of come along beside them and work on that, and just acknowledge that with our students. And we should ask them and have a conversation with them. It's a way of connecting with that student and with that family to try and make a way. It may be hard. It may be cultural. It shows our interest and desire for our students to learn and that we're teaching them. Not everything's taught on a blackboard. Some things our students just learn from us and our reactions. The second post, we had you select at least one of the tests on bias and report the results. There was a variety of different tests selected, and a couple we wanted to point out. I think it was Terrence. He was not surprised by his preference on skin tone, since it directly related to his own, or his. He made a good point that it's natural to have a personal preference that we are more closely associated with, but having a prejudice or bias in the classroom is something we need to pay attention to and prevent. Elizabeth mentioned these results may point toward the seeds of bias that we have and that we should be aware when dealing with others, especially when dealing with students and their families. I like that you pointed out the interaction with families. As educators, we have to interact with parents at some point, and being aware of cultural differences could potentially help us in these situations. I think about having translators, when we're having a parent-teacher conference. Also in relation to bias, think of how offensive or insensitive it is if we have a Hispanic student sitting in our classroom. Well, 2 Hispanic students sitting in our classroom, and maybe one speaks English and one doesn't speak English very well. And we say to the one, can you translate for that? And you're like, I don't speak English. I don't speak Spanish. And our automatically assumption is that they would speak Spanish, but that's not always the case. They may be generations removed from that, or may not. They may share in some traditions, but not be immersed in that culture. And the same way, you may have a Black student who's being raised in a white home. They're not going to relate to the life of a Black person or the same experiences that they have. our Black students are not going to be able to relate to our life, and we are not going to be able to relate to theirs. It is different. I have different thoughts, concerns, and worries than we do. It's the same with like Asian and Hmong, and there's a vast difference between like Chinese, Japanese, and Vietnamese cultures. They're very different. They may look similar, have the same visual characteristics, but they're very different. Their cultures are different. So we should never assume who our students are, who we perceive them to be, because there may be somebody completely different. The exercise was good. It wasn't on bias, was good. It may have had, like, obviously there could have been errors in it, but it's a good thing to be able to recognize our bias and be aware when teaching diverse students that we do not become partial.